But you know, in a way, if you want to go in, I'll tell you about the story.
Are we even for Greek time here? Okay, I will speak English in honor of our guests, so that everybody understands. First of all, we would like to thank the companies that make this possible. AIG for the big support of our lecture tonight. Yes Hotels that have been supporting us throughout all these years, and especially Stefania, if she's here, who takes care of us, and of course Aegean Airlines. Duro Olowu has been a good friend for many years. He's a very famous fashion designer. And last year he curated a show in London at a public space called Camden Arts Centre, which was a very different way of curating shows, something out of the box. We all loved it. The press loved it, the critics loved it. So while I was thinking about who would be the next person to invite to the Cycladic, of course, I thought, why not Duro, who did such an amazing project in London. And talking to Duro, Duro said, well, I think I would like to do this talk with Glenn Ligon, who you might all know, who is an also very, very famous contemporary artist. And of course, when we heard that, we were very excited and delighted that we could have them both here. We are really, really honored and happy to have you both here in Athens just for this event, just for this talk. I will just say a few words in case some people are not aware of everything that especially because Glenn will be interviewing Duro, so they will talk a lot about his work. I just want to say a few words about Glenn before we start. Glenn's work explores history, American history, black history, racial issues, social tensions, and his artworks are both politically provocative and formally beautiful. His works often draw on writings of diverse figures, like it could be someone like Jean Genet or the comedian Richard Pryor. You might have seen the paintings that start with text that are stenciled over and over. We have a few slides to show you. That's just a little bit of an introduction about Glenn before we start the interview with Duro.
Well, much to my protest, because this talk is really about Duro, but
this is about the Cycladic.
Right. But to just give you some context, I met Duro many, many years ago through a good friend, Thelma Golden, who is the director of the Studio Museum in Harlem, but also married to Duro. And had always admired his work as a designer, though I'm still waiting for the menswear. But the women's wear that I've seen, I thought, was such an interesting mix of influences, and his eye for color and pattern were quite extraordinary. But also his relationship to artists, I think, is really interesting. So artists are in and out of Duro's life, in and out of the shop. They take inspiration from him, and he takes inspiration from them. So, so that's what got me on that 9-hour flight from New York last night to do this dialogue with Duro.
Just for the weekend,
just
I
for the
say,
weekend.
Yes. And with a blizzard in New York.
With a blizzard, but you know, any excuse to get out of the United States at this moment is welcome.
And before you start, I'd just like to say that Glenn has had a retrospective at the Whitney Museum in 2011, which is a very big honor, of course. He has shown at the Venice Biennial. His work is in all the major museums in the world. And we're just going to go quickly through 4 or 5 slides just to give us a little bit.
So basically, as you said, my work deals with mostly text, actually. All of my work is text-based. Often it is using very simple words like this, the word America in neon, painted black on the front and mirrored. Often it's quotes from a variety of sources. James Baldwin, as you mentioned, Zora Neale Hurston, Walt Whitman. This was the installation in Venice Biennale in 2015.
Can you say 2 words about these words?
Blues, the musical form, blood, and the bruise that comes from a wound. So I was thinking about how the blues as an art form, one author, Ralph Ellison, said the blues is personal tragedy expressed lyrically. So the blues always contains this kind of heartbreak and trauma. And I was thinking about that in relationship to these words, bruise and blood. And sort of this piece was commissioned for the Biennale and sort of, in a way, set the tone for the work you saw inside the Italian pavilion. This is a more recent neon. It's from the title of a James Baldwin novel from the 60s. It was made right after the recent American elections, where we were all thinking where we're going to go. The title of the novel is Another Country, but it for me had a particular resonance at this, because Baldwin in that novel is talking about making another country in the country you're in. This piece, a quote from Gertrude Stein from the book called 3 Lives, where she talks about this funny thing, Negro sunshine, black sunshine. A text painting. Often my work uses text and oil paint and has this repetition in it. Much more abstract painting using words by James Baldwin again. And another painting using coal dust, which is this very shiny black material using James Baldwin's words again. So, on to the main. Enough of that.
I'm now going to leave you
yes,
for the...
Thank you. Thank you, Greg. Thank you for that introduction. So I thought we'd do a couple of things. First, I want to show a film that Duro made in 2014. So we'll maybe turn the lights down if we can, and we'll just show this film. It's from the 2014 collection.
careful, the rest might not be as good.
You can tell that I'm not a fashion person because I realize that fashion is always a year ahead. So if you make a film in 14, you're actually showing next year's clothing. So pardon my mistake there. What's really interesting for me about that film, though, is besides the clothes, which are extraordinary, the range of ways the model is moving, and also the setting that she's moving in, the indigo cloth that's draped over the screen, the painting in the background. I think it really sets up, in a way, a lot of things for me about your interest in curating. But we'll get to that. But let me show you first some images from which season is this?
This is what I just showed in London Fashion Week.
Okay, so this is brand
for
new.
next fall, winter 2017.
17, okay. So we'll just go.
And the collection is really about, you know, a kind of idea of feminine confidence in a gloriously multicultural world. So where if you got all the women in the world together and made them just wear clothes in a certain way, you know, the world would be a much better place, I feel. So.
So then, when I was looking at these images of the coming line for 17, I was thinking about Duro and Instagram and how, if people don't know, Duro has a fantastic Instagram account. I've been following him for many years. And what's interesting about the Instagram account is that, again, it sets up for me, makes accessible for many different people all of the things that you're interested in. And the range of things that you're interested in is really interesting. So I just literally went through on my phone through Duro's Instagram account and picked out some images that I particularly liked. This are two daughters of
an artist. Two artists.
Yeah, two
One
artists.
of them borrowed her mother's dress, which is my dress on the left.
Yes.
I thought that was great.
These are 17-year-olds, you know, wearing Duro, and she knows how to pose, I must say, you know. Iman, the model. What year is this?
This is a few months ago.
A few months ago. A picture I took at Duro's show, at the party for Duro's show, Making and Unmaking, which was at Camden Arts Centre, which you're going to see images from later on. And just tell us who's in the photo.
My wife Thelma is closest to us, and then Ashley Ajay, who's David Ajay's wife, and Eliane Fatal. The curious thing was, you always imagine your work in the world in a cluster, you know, a group of people. And for some reason, I didn't take this picture.
I took this picture.
Okay.
Yeah.
But for some reason, it doesn't happen often. So when you see it, it's very satisfying. It must be similar to the feeling one gets when you put on a great show in the museum, or, you know, it's putting the work out, so it's nice.
But what was really nice about it was that people were wearing the clothes they own for you, basically. This was an opening of your show, you know, and so I thought this moment was actually quite fantastic, but also the diversity of what was being worn there, too. A picture that I took in Hong Kong of Kristen McElmany, who knows how to pose as well.
Well, she used to be a big model. Models never stop posing.
That's true. And Thelma again in front of a big mural in New York by the artist Julie Moretu.
Yeah.
And then who's that?
That's a client's daughter the client and her husband came into the store, and the daughter, who's probably 7, took one of the pieces and started posing.
And you're like, so, if you break it, you buy
it.
It's
very inspiring, but it's very inspiring even to me, because desire from children is the greatest, it sort of makes you realize why something works, because it's not tarnished, you know, it's art through, it's looking at things with an open eye, which I strive to do.
So she just literally came into the shop and saw something
her mother and
she
father
was interested in.
Yeah, and she put it on.
Right,
Yeah.
right. That's fantastic. And then other things, I've grouped these things in categories, but these are not categories that are, if you look at the Instagram feed, these are not categories that Duro's made, but just for the sake of this talk.
That's Educator, the famous modern photographer, but again, looking at this, and even looking at the show currently on at the Cycladic, McCabe, is that right? Mm-hmm. I love the pictures where you have these groups of women, either on a boat or in an interior. The sort of power that emanates from that is very, my mother raised me right, basically. No, but it's very inspiring to me, and I'm always drawn to that in visual culture. Diana Vreeland, I went to, I don't know how that came into my life, but that's very important, because she understood how to juxtapose her love of Ottoman with, you know, couture, etc. And she did it in a way that wasn't pompous, which I think is good. This is where I live in London, in Notting Hill. This is a Moroccan woman buying fruit. But the mix, the way she put the things together.
Well, the stand itself, too, the way that's mixed together, but also the idea, I think, that style doesn't always come from the top. It comes from...
On the contrary, actually.
Yeah, comes from other places.
It comes from real life.
Right.
And a real understanding of clothes, both for beauty, necessity, and confidence. And where does that come from, you know?
This was in Nigeria?
Yeah, this was at the airport in Lagos, waiting for my wife to come through. And these people were just standing in front of me at Christmas. A woman on the tube in London. I'm a bit of a detective. I mean, I take a picture.
Yeah, I never, like, I tried to take pictures like this and people spot me immediately. But Duro, like, we went to look at, to Senegal to look at some textiles. And we were in Saint Louis. And literally, we're walking down the street. There's a woman walking ahead of us with this fantastic dress on. Duro takes a picture, I take a picture, and I look at the Instagram, and Duro's picture is amazing, and mine is like, she's off to the side.
But you're the artist. I'm doing it free of how will it look, you know, I take the picture. It's Portobello.
Right.
That's Lagos. My father lives in Lagos, so I go often.
But this is just street style, which is really
But I don't call it street style, I call it real style.
Okay.
Yeah. I think there's a big difference, you know. Everybody here tonight is sporting real style. It's not street style. It's not made to be shot by photographers or whatever. It's instinctive. I love that.
Okay.
Nina Simone, Jackie Onassis and Marella Agnelli. I happen to know Marella's granddaughter, and I was very thrilled to discover that she made fabrics in the 70s. She had a big range of home fabrics which were used, but I love that picture. I think it's evocative. Lagos. These are Slovakian immigrants who came to America, Ellis Island, in what, 1908, and there was an officer there that photographed them. But you know, you look at the clothes, and if you don't think about borders, you just respect the way the clothes are.
But it's also, I think, an idea of how people used to travel. Travel was, I mean, this was huge travel. I mean, basically going to a new life.
Yeah.
But I remember, you know, when my mother was younger, or my parents were younger, you got dressed up to go.
Absolutely. I still do.
You know, to go on a train or go on a bus. It was an occasion.
Yeah, I make an effort.
And you sort of presented your best, you know.
Because travel was, you know, it's almost like the difference between, I'm someone who I got a mobile phone very late, much to my wife's dismay. And then I started with a flip phone, much to her dismay. And I use a phone, though, for what it's meant for. It doesn't mean that I'm old-fashioned, but I remember when, you know, when the phone rang, it meant something. And it's not about being old-fashioned, it's about respecting everything about the phone. Why was it made? Who designed it, you know? And the same with travel. I'm not saying you need to dress up, but if you make an effort with anything, the way you lay your table, the way you wear your clothes, for a lot of people it's the only thing that makes them feel, you know, good about their situation in life.
The women in the image before was this image of coming to America, and this is another version of America. Grace Jones.
But that's Covallo, who was a great photographer.
It's hard to tell from the picture, but she's wearing a record on her head as a hat.
Lauryn Hill for music. I like all sorts of music. I mean, from Verdi and, you know, from opera to reggae, jazz, Afrobeat, classical, soul, everything. But that's how I was raised, you know, where everything was played. And I think we all come from that, you know.
It's the model for Life magazine.
Yeah, Eve Arnold, who was a famous photographer who took the Marilyn Monroe pictures that are very famous. Parts of the women.
Maya
Angelou and Gloria Steinem.
Right. Oops.
It's okay, you can just keep going.
Okay.
This is London schoolgirls in the 80s, which I think is great.
Yeah. And
last week in Portugal.
Just the neighbor with a fantastic tracksuit. Yeah. And then just images of men. I'll go through them a little more quickly.
Malik Sidibe. Music is always super important. Oh, that's a great basketball player from the 70s. Very chic.
Walt Clyde Frazier. It is interesting, though, music, sports, particularly sports now, particularly basketball players, there's this evolving sense of style, you know, and it's interesting that
But I think it's different. I think everything now, even in fashion, it's very hard to stay independent. You know, everything has a label now, and the label is usually on the outside. So you can't trust that the people you admire, you know, if you saw a picture of Melina Mercury in the 70s and she was wearing something nice, you didn't think, oh, I like that. I wouldn't name a label, but you wouldn't name the label. You would just look at her, and that is what dreams are made of. You know, that's what stays in one's head. So I like the fact that these men, they're very concerned about their dressing, but they don't look like fashion, you know, victims of the whole thing. I mean, I see that a lot.
Well,
and I think
Hendrix doesn't have a stylist, you know.
Exactly, that's the difference.
Miles Davis didn't have a stylist. This was his style.
Yeah.
It's interesting.
That's the Mamounia Hotel. 2 months ago I was there in Marrakesh, and as I was leaving, the doorman's cape was just amazing.
But also the patterns.
Yeah, the tiles. Brian Eno, who also I love. I mean, he took a lot of risks in the 70s. And David Hockney, another style icon. This was the opening of the
Wolfgang Tillmans
a few weeks ago, in London at the Tate. Policemen chatting in Nigeria when they should be on the street.
But it's also about, you know,
the way they wear them.
Yeah, the way they were wearing the uniforms too.
Marina Adams, an artist.
Art, you know, so on this Instagram, all of these things are on. I literally took them off of Duro's Instagram feed. So this is, you know, one of the thousands of things that he's posted over, you know, a couple of years that you've been doing. 2 years. Yeah. Oh my God! All right. Marina Adams, abstract painter, just had a beautiful show.
Kees van Dongen, who was a fabulous painter in the 20s and 30s and traveled around a lot. Chris O'Feely, Sam Gilliam, another great painter living in LA. Oh, this is great. This is
I'm forgetting the name.
Yeah, I don't. You see, that shouldn't happen. It's a famous English painter from the 30s. She went relatively unknown.
What was interesting about that painting for you?
Well, you know, I love the ballet Russe and Nijinsky and Diaghilev. And this Lubov Chechnya, I think her name is, was the principal ballerina and never wanted herself portrayed, except for this woman.
Oh,
so there must have been a story.
There's a story. That's fantastic.
An Italian artist from the 60s, Nolli, who went unknown for a long time, but
it's the ultimate painting for a shoe fetishist, which you are not.
Imagine, this painting is probably twice the size of this screen.
Right.
And all done, it's amazing. Oh, Alice Neal, who is an incredible American painter, that's a self-portrait.
But what's interesting, there's a very beautiful show in New York now of her portraits when she lived in East Harlem, and that chair is very familiar. Many of the portraits she's done, people are sitting in that chair. So to represent yourself naked at that age, I think is an incredible kind of act of self-revealing, basically, in the way that she reveals the sitters that, sat for the portraits.
But for Delaney's portrait, which I love, I always like to imagine I look like that in real life. Gauguin, who I'm a big fan of, but not many people know he made ceramics.
Right.
So that's
very rare. I saw a show of them at the Met, and I was hard-pressed to identify them, but amazing.
Louise Bourgeois, who we all know and love. Bonnard, who's another big influence, just with the juxtaposition of, the detail that his paintings have. Lisa Bryce, who was in the show Making and Unmaking, a young painter. These are masquerades in certain parts of West Africa by Rosemary Galeng. Is it Rosemary? Phyllis Galembo.
Phyllis Galembo, yeah.
Beautiful. I love Phyllis.
And this is the store, Duro's store in Mason's Yard in London, and a number of shots. But what's interesting about, maybe you just describe what we're looking at here?
Well, if we just keep going, here, I like things, and my wife told me at some point, you're going to buy it, you've got to sell it. But I love things, and the beauty of, I've always kept a shop of my own. Even though I sell all over the world in different stores, Matches Fashion, Le Bon Marché, etc. I always kept a store of my own because it was my own thing to express. So in that store, you might see,
I'll just flip through.
I juxtapose photography with, that's a cape from a year and a half ago, feathered cape of mine. And I just move things around constantly, and people never really remember what they've seen and what they haven't seen. But I think that people need to be shown sometimes why you make certain things. So it's always a sort of surreal juxtaposition of, and things from all over the world, from artists from all over the world. My sandals with an orchid with a 1930s Swedish ceramic. To me, it's not strange. But if you don't show it, that's an art patron and another artist when they visit.
Could you talk about the fabric on the walls as well?
Yeah, if you go on. So when I was growing up, my mother, who met my father in the 50s in London, and my father was trained to be a barrister, and then moved back to Lagos in 1959. But my mother basically was quite eclectic in her taste, and there was a group of fabric makers that commissioned artists to hand stenciled fabric. And my mother would go and buy a lot of them. They've since closed. And they're brocade, actually. It's not wallpaper, it's brocade. And the whole house would be there. So maybe the living room is the green curtain. In our bedrooms, there'd be another color. But I grew up with that, and I'd always kept going back and buying what was left, because the whole nobody wanted handmade things, etc. So I built up a collection which I've kept, and I had it installed on the walls as wallpaper, but it's actually brocade from Vienna, which is then printed, from the 60s, 70s, 80s. It's Glenn's work and Evan Anderson.
And I'm showing the shop, the shop is half the size of this room.
No, not even.
Not even. But what's extraordinary about it is, as you can see from the images, there's so much richness in it, in terms of, the ceramics, the clothes that you're making, the artists that have lent you work to put in the shop and given you things to put in the shop, the textiles.
This is my studio, actually, so this is separate, but how many times can you go into a store and buy a dress or a pair of trousers? I'm sorry, you know, this is probably bad for business, but at some point I want to be entertained aesthetically. And two things I always think, can we keep just two things I always think will keep me coming back are politeness and the general, you know, the way the salesperson behaves, and things that I haven't seen that I didn't notice. So I always try to move things around, and you'd be surprised. It's an old trick, but sometimes people just don't see things, and you move it 1 inch, and it flies out the next way. It's just the way it is, but I think it's also the idea of really appreciating that a client can't just come in and buy one thing.
But for me, when I'm, and this is the studio, but for me what's interesting about going to the shop is I'm going there to look at how things are arranged. You know, the way I'm going to look at new things, the way I would go to a museum or gallery to look at those things. And the range of things that you show is quite extraordinary, I find.
But
so
it's
just,
not,
this
it's
is
not
like
planned.
one little corner of the shop, and
it's
you
not
can
planned.
see.
That's the whole thing. Because there's too much of that, and I love museums, and I really, personally, even though I have a few pieces of art, I do not think it necessary to collect, because I think it is a real joy to walk into a museum and look at art in every variety. Which is why I always tell friends of mine that are patrons or whatever that, you know, instead of buying all this art, just buy from museums, you know. And it's not about giving back, it's about creating an idea of what art is, which people used to do, the Annenbergs, the Rockefellers, you know, then it stopped and it became something else.
This
is a window.
Yeah, a window, but this is a sort of segue into Duro's curatorial practice, because essentially you made a store within a store.
Yeah,
right?
This is in a store called Matches in London, and they asked, for Fashion Week 2 weeks ago, they asked if I could do a whole window of my things for London Fashion Week, and they thought I was sending 10 assistants, but then I showed up and did it myself.
Right.
So it worked out. I don't know if you have it, but it worked out. That's the finished window. To drape fabrics in the collection.
But incredible to make your store in this other space. So also, I remember seeing images from the Obama's White House, where you've done
the
Christmas decorations were extraordinary. Because what's extraordinary about, because you know, these things all come with kinds of constraints of time and materials and what you can do, and you're shipping things to the White House, they have to like...
Yeah, but you know, Greek,
Nigerian, Jamaica, whatever.
Anything is possible, you know? At the end of the day, if you're expecting 5 people for dinner and you end up with 20, you feed all of them, you know? It's like, my colleagues, I respect my colleagues, but it's like, oh, I'm designing 2 collections a year, it's so hard, you know. You know, it's so hard. You know, for me, if you love it, it's a joy. It's like the way women wear clothes, you know, if you love it, you can put the effort in.
So, the shop, I think, is a good segue to the exhibition, Making and Unmaking, which was at Camden. So, could you talk a bit about, sort of what museums mean to you? Like, why curate, why that's interesting for you, but also why curate for a museum? Well,
you don't get to curate, they asked me, based on a few shows I had done at Salon 94 in New York, gallery shows that became, I thought it was just playing around, not playing around, but putting things together.
Okay, let me pause a little bit, because Duro's first gallery show in New York that he curated, he calls me up and says, Glenn, who is this Roberta Smith? And I say, chief art critic for the New York Times. Oh, she liked my show.
Well, she wrote a great review, and I really thought, oh, you know, this nice woman understands what I'm trying to
do. You know, most powerful art critic in the United States liked his show.
Yeah. But then, you know, what you do with that is you up your game. So by the time I was back in London, and I did a conversation with Glenn at the Tate. He asked me, and the directors of quite a few museums were there, and the director of the Camden Arts Centre, which has had shows with Phillips Gonzalez Torres, Bryce Martin, Cara Walker, you name it. It's 50 years old. She said to me, I'd really like to talk to you. And a few weeks later, she offered me a show at the entrance to the Serpentine Summer Show. She literally says, I'll give you the whole museum. You can do whatever you want. How often does that happen?
Never.
Exactly. So before I even thought of what the show would be, I thought, I'll do it. And then I thought of the whole idea and theme sort of being what I find fascinating, knowing artists and just knowing people that are creative, other designers, artisans, artists, is no one really sees when they're in their studios or in their workspaces just not playing around, trying to make things work. It's a very isolated thing and very private, but it's beautiful. And a lot of collectors would love to see what comes out of that, but they never have the opportunity. And a lot of ordinary members of the public, I felt, should have that. So the show was inspired initially by Annie Albers, the wife of Joseph Albers, who made incredible work, not just on fabric. She was a powerhouse textile designer. She was a superb painter, draftsperson. She made jewelry, all these things I found via the Albers Foundation. And I thought, you know, for a lot of women artists like her, they stepped back, you know, and they made textiles, and it was seen as, you know, fabric art. She was a prolific artist. And I related that to different artists, well-known artists. Bryce Martin is in the show, Dorothea Tanning, Chris O'Feely, Lydia Clark, Louise Bourgeois, alongside all these textiles from Nigeria from the 30s, 40s, 50s, some earlier, and other things that, Aliero Boetti, things that you would not normally put together. I just felt that if all these artists and these particular works were in one room, there would be harmony. So I knew how it would look. The director could not believe how many artists I had gotten things from. She was over 70 artists.
Not only how many artists were in the show, but how you got things that people didn't show. You know, artists who said, I'm not sure, I've never shown that, but I trust you. But also, like you were talking about the Albers textile that had never been out of the foundation before.
Well, you know, I think persuasion is a good thing, and people believe in a new idea, they'll go with it. I deal every day. I can cut, roughly sew a bit, but you know, I'm not the man that has been making patterns for 30 years. So most of the time, if I'm working with my pattern maker, he says, Duro, it's not possible. You know, I said, try it, you know. And he goes, you know, it's not possible. And then he goes, oh my God, it's possible. But also, I knew his children, his grandchildren, when he's drinking, when he's not drinking. You know, you really form a certain level of trust, which I also have with people that come to my store, actually.
But did you, from my experience, because I've curated a couple of projects, you have to understand the culture of the institution. And it seemed like with Camden and Jenny Lomax as director, you kind of understood each other. So she was willing to do for you things she would not have done for any other curator.
Well, the whole idea was, I said, you've given me the space, so just allow me to inhabit it.
Right.
But my real challenge, I wanted to make the public see something they would love. That was really it. And I felt that this was such an important space, and these artists would never be in the same room together again. You know? So Polly Apfelbaum, you know.
The pieces on the back of
yes,
the
she
alphabets.
did a whole graffiti area. Yinka Shirley Barrett, Lorna Simpson, Dorothea Tanning. And
these are names that don't go in shows together very often.
But then Cycladic Museum and, I don't know, your next show, can I say?
No.
Okay. Oops. I love that, no. Okay, but even Yanis Kulin is doing something here, or I Wait. I mean, who wants the same, really? Do you think great works or great things you love come from a mind that wants the same.
Well, also I think, you know, speaking as an artist, often people have an understanding of what you do based on what they see, but not based on what you're actually thinking about, you know. So I've had many conversations from people who, you know, I said, oh, I love Boetti, and they think, oh, just, oh, because it's text. Like, no, all of Boetti, all of Boetti.
For example, I arrived last night, and I got to the hotel, and I thought, oh, I'll just take a nap. And but then I spoke to a friend. I couldn't sleep. I thought, I'm in Athens. You know, it's a bit cold, but I'm in Athens. It looks quiet. You know, so I had dinner with a friend who happens to be here, George, and you know, drinks. And I discovered a new neighborhood called Petraluna. Well, when I say discovered, not in a patronizing way, I just liked that I'd never been there and it's so close. And then I said, let's just drive around. It was 1 a.m, and it was amazing. You know, I've seen Athens, not with so much graffiti. I have to admit, the last time I came there was like, so to be confronted by the buildings, the graffiti, then we went to the old vegetable and meat market. Amazing. And then we were at the old Olympic Stadium with the podium with 1, 2, 3. I mean, the whole thing, you couldn't make it up. And you think, am I being a tourist? Yes. But who cares? You know, somehow, all this will find its way into the length of a skirt next season. That's the thing.
Right.
It's true.
Right. And it's not a direct process, and that's what's so interesting, is that you can be very cosmopolitan, you can have influences from all over the world, but they never look at your work and say, oh, I see directly where that came from, because you're pulling from so many different
But also
sources.
that's the work. You can't be literal.
Right.
So if I say, for example, it's a cycladic sculpture or something, you won't see, I mean, some people do it, but I won't just print a cycladic sculpture or something. I look at the shape and I think of it in relation to clothes, and then if you look at Roman sculpture or African sculpture, you see this silhouette and you think, it's not that different. It works its way. That's the work. That's the work.
It's just going room by room through the show.
Yeah.
You know, it's an extraordinary range of objects.
Yeah, Irving Penn. I got some beautiful Irving Penn, This is jewelry by Annie Albers, who nobody thought made jewelry.
Right.
But I heard that she did make jewelry, so I asked them if I begged. And Francis Upprichard. And it's really funny because I was looking at the jewelry very briefly upstairs. And I thought, what was in my head? We built that cabinet. Then at the end, I thought we should paint it a color and just lay it on top so that it comes to life. And I felt really inspired by what I saw upstairs today. I thought, you know, it's not so strange. You know, if you really want to show something, give it the background to shine, which is what the show was about. Isaac Julian, a very well-known Indian artist whose name, she passed in the 80s. She did these beautiful sculptures. This is the Surrealist Room with West African and French textile, Yinka Shoni-Barry's work, Claude Cahin. The sculpture is Dorothea Tanning, and it actually, that was a big, big coup for me. To just have a Dorothea Tanning sculpture was wonderful.
American artist, lived into her 100, I think.
Yeah, she lived until 100. And she was a surrealist. She was married to Max Ernst, if I'm correct, for a while. And a woman ahead of her time, in a way.
The Lisa Bryce again.
Yeah.
That's the Tanning again.
Yeah, this is a juxtaposition of Henry Taylor, Zoe Buckman.
Right.
This area was very popular with children. No, really.
Why?
I don't know. I mean, the invigilators said that this was the most, children would come back more than once with their parents and say, we want to go into this room.
Oh, that's interesting.
So, this is the same room.
how did you lay this out?
Well, that's a touchy question because much to the dismay of the director, I didn't have a lay plan. I get all the things in, and then over 2 days I just go, oh, put this here, and you play.
It's like the shop.
Yeah, it's like my work. That's how I mix fabric.
Right.
And it didn't go down well for
No, I can tell you, I'm working on a show now, and the show's 4 months away, and they're like, oh, can you send us pictures of the work and the model?
Yeah.
Because we want to start staging how we're going to install it. And I thought, but half the loans haven't even been approved yet. So what museums are about?
Museums are about plans.
So that's what I meant when you had a really good relationship with the director, because she allowed you to work.
I drove her crazy.
Yeah, but
she's wonderful.
The show.
You know her.
Yeah.
This is a woman that has done shows way before artists became famous. I mean, you look at the roster and you think, she's retiring in June, and it's a great loss for everyone. We're very sad, but it's a good thing for the museum. But she only got it an hour, the whole thing an hour before the show. She said, "Oh my God, it all works."
But that's faith.
That's what I was going to say.
Faith, right. Yeah. And this is a director too. When I did a show there, it was going to be all work that I'd already done, and by the time the show opened, it was all new work. Yeah. And how did that happen? I wasn't sure how that happened, but somehow
it's a very
confidence in yourself as an artist, but also wanting to rise to an occasion.
And this is what I believe people that wear clothes should do, quite frankly. We are not there to tell you, wear an ankle boot this season and a stiletto next season. You can wear either, but we need to just give you beautiful things to choose from. That's the hardest thing to do. And when you think of Malimbione or Balenciaga, Cristobal Balenciaga, or Schiaparelli, and all these incredible designers, Patrick Kelly, Stephen Burrows, you realize they were not dictating to women. They were really just saying, here's something I made last night, but they thought about everything you want to show, you don't want to show. And that's why the things last. They're not made for eBay or for designer resale stores. People keep them with pride. There's another one. This was a Portuguese artist who made these Bauhaus-inspired furniture, but I put them in the lobby. If we go to the other thing, that's the lobby. James Brown. This was a light-filled space as well. So,
this wall piece by Anya Galatz.
Yeah, she made a piece. I commissioned a piece for the outside garden, which you will see in a minute.
Right.
But this is hand-knotted jute or rope.
Right.
But she had a little left, and about 3 hours before the show, I said, Anya, make something for that wall, And she made that. Right. She made that.
Wait. She made that.
She made that 3 hours before the show. Yeah. Okay. She hung it. She and the workman.
Right. And that's incredible. And here it is.
This is the garden.
Installed in the garden.
Yeah.
Of the
we had.
museum.
If you see from the top left, there's a window, and the whole idea is that all those ideas find their way out of there and into the world. So she literally, with 3 or 4 great installers, that took her 2 days.
Right.
But children loved it, and it was a very rare, nice period of sunshine in London. And, I don't think art, like clothes, it's not elitist, which is why markets are good. You can find, as a woman, you can find something that is worth thousands for nothing, but it's there, it's accessible. There's no arrogance with it, and art should be the same. It's for people to dream and remember, and that's what I love about that.
We just have a few more images. This is the
Dorothea
Tanning. That's also Dorothea Tanning.
Yeah. Annie Albers. This is a really rare thing that they allowed this to leave the foundation. Linetia Domboaké, who's a wonderful painter and a dear friend, she has a show at the New Museum in April. She was the Serpentine Gallery summer show 2 years ago. She's been nominated for the Turner Prize. Very hard to get paintings of hers. I mean, literally, there's a waiting list. But I asked her if she would make something for the show, and she made 5 paintings. And all of them were done in this reclining position, which she hadn't done before. So that was great. I mean, she got a few dresses, but...
This is why we're waiting for the menswear. I can make you 5 paintings too.
Yeah, I'm sorry, Glenn. Great.
That's the last image I have. So,
that's a bit like me thinking about what to do next, actually. It's a good painting. I love it.
It's a beautiful painting, yeah.
After Sargent.
Should we have questions now?
I don't know, it depends on whether people want to ask questions.
Oh, okay. Are there questions from the audience? Over here.
I just wanted to ask about the title, Making.
Making and Unmaking. Yeah. Again, the title based on when you're working, like with me, with my work, if I'm working on something, it all seems good. You do the sketches, you develop your fabrics, and just at that crucial moment, you think it's a disaster, you know? What do I do? Well, maturity, actually, I feel, and skill comes from knowing that instead of changing everything, you just need to change 1 or 2 things, and what you thought was not good enough becomes completely different. And Lynette was doing a talk at the House de Kunst with you, and somebody said, do you paint over paintings if you don't like them? And she said, I used to, but now I just change the color. So if I mix purple with blue, the whole thing becomes different. And she did mention, she said it's a kind of making and unmaking of the same painting. So I stole that from her, and I use it as a title.
But I think it's true. A lot of artists, you know, have things in your studio.
Yeah.
You don't think they work, you put them away, you come back to them, but you're looking at them from the corner of your eye, and then you rearrange something and suddenly they work.
They work.
So, yeah. Here.
Was that reflected in the sensibility of the painting or the works that you chose for the show?
Absolutely.
Or was it in the way that you curated the show?
More in the way, thank you for that question, actually. It's really something I think is important. That was essential to the way I chose the works, because I felt that the artists, I felt a responsibility to the dead artists, and I felt a responsibility to the living artists. And I wanted it to show that it wasn't just about size or exposure, it was really about, you know, trying to explain they thought it through, they played around, they have a sense of humor, but also they have a sense of sadness. Everything we go through, you know, and look at what they produced.
What was interesting to me in the show, was most of the work in the show, you had the sense of the artist's hand.
Oh, totally. Yeah.
There was nothing that was sent off to a fabricator and came back finished.
No.
You really did have this sense of, like, in many, many of the objects that you were seeing something that someone actually touched.
Yeah.
You know,
but I think the public can feel that, which is why when you, again, going back to Kulenis or the Ai Weiwei, the artists came here and made site-specific work. And these are famous artists who could easily have said no, but they died to do that. They're desperate to do that. And they don't have the opportunity to do that as much as you imagine.
There are other...
The only problem with that is for dead artists.
Absolutely, but you know, when they were alive, you can walk into a foundation and still spot the work that was really about their personal touch, hopefully, you know. And, you know, dead artists live on in their work, so I felt quite comfortable.
Well, one of the revelations in the show for me was the Albers, because I knew her textile work. I had no idea she made jewelry.
And paintings, and but I think that's, you know, it probably wouldn't happen in Greece. Greek women are tough. If you're an artist, you say you're an artist. You know? I make your dinner, but I'm an artist. But, you know, with her, you know, Jeffrey Albers was this incredible artist, but I'm sure, for various reasons, quite rigid for the time. And, you know, it wasn't, women was in the Bauhaus movement, women only made utensils and fabrics. a lot of them painted, a lot of them did sculpture. And I think it took a lot for her to spend 50, 60 years making work that nobody really recognized her for. And I love that.
So that was part of the show too, was to bring
it to the fore.
Bring that to the fore. Right. Other questions?
I have a question. Can we all have a drink now?
Yes.
I think it's time.
Thank you.
Thank you. What time is it? Is it Really? Anything to